Welcome everybody to Justin Watches Movies. New background for you guys. I moved into a new apartment and I'm just testing out what things work with my background. Just putting in some random things. But I'm here today to talk to you about some of the horrible movies that were released in 2015. Yes, 2015 was a great year. You had Star Wars, Mad Max, some good gems of The Revenant, a lot of great blockbusters, but there were also a lot of... As always, I'm going to start with my dishonorable mentions, movies that were pretty bad but did not make the list. Pixels was a pretty bad film with Adam Sandler and Kevin James as the president. But when I sat down and thought about it, I said, I would watch this film again, but I wouldn't enjoy it. Aloha, disappointingly, was a very boring film, and this film that just felt like no one cared about being in it. And don't even get me started on Tomorrowland. Hot Pursuit had a terrible chemistry between Reese Witherspoon and Sofia Vergara. And then you had Pan. Oh yes, Pan. Big CGI mess that reminded me a lot of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Alright guys, it's time to get into my 10 worst films of 2015. Coming in at number 10 is... The idea of this movie is actually pretty cool. A group of friends that are trapped inside a high school that's being haunted. It's very dark, a great setting, but yet it was a bad film. All of the actors were cliche as can be. They reminded me a lot of people that I went to high school with. It had its typical found footage shaky cam and a build up to a very bad, uneventful, anticlimactic end. Coming in at number 9 is... Yes, I saw this movie. I did not want to see this movie, yet I was forced to see this movie. I saw it. Now, some of the songs in Gem and the Holograms are a bit catchy. I found myself driving home and singing these songs. But everything else, from the robot that was very unnecessary, to the cheesy message to the film, to the 4 sisters that didn't really feel like sisters at all. I do think that the one thing that made me hate this film the most was that little robot. This wasn't Earth to Echo, this was Gem and the Holograms. Now, I didn't watch the TV show in the 80s or 90s whenever it came out. I didn't watch that show, but if just watching this film just based on this new film, that robot was completely unnecessary. Coming in at number 8 is... It's sad to think that Taken 1 was such a great film, Taken 2 was such a bad film, and Taken 3 was even worse. Man, talk about going downhill real quick. Taken 3 had some of the worst editing I've ever seen. They should have just ended it at Taken 1, because Taken 3 tried to jam-pack all this action, do what Taken 1 did, and then do what Taken 2 did, but yet make its editing a lot worse. I couldn't even tell what was going on. The editing was so fast. And it's probably because Liam Neeson is old and he can't keep up like he used to. Coming in at number 7 is... I don't even know what this film was honestly about. The movie started out really good. I thought this could be a really fun film. And then it got to a point in the film where it just got really boring. The only time I laughed is when Danny McBride was on screen. And that was few and far between. Bill Murray's character was so poorly written. He seemed like a guy who did not care about anything in the beginning of this film as he was traveling to this new country. And then upon meeting this new girl that could really bring him back into the game, just didn't really match with how he was in the beginning of the movie. It was so uneventful, so boring, and so poorly written. Coming in at number 6 is... Now, this film was pushed back so many times, and I can see why. This film had some stuff that was some interesting stuff. Jeff Bridges is hard to understand at times as can be, and here he was even harder to understand. Add that with a bunch of monsters that have already been done before, probably with Clash of the Titans, and over-the-top performances from pretty much everybody, including Julianne Moore. The Seventh Son was a pretty cool idea. I think it's based on some books, but did not pan well on screen. Alright guys, we're getting down to the 5 worst films of 2015. Coming at number 5 is... I would put this film higher, but the other films are a lot worse. Fantastic Four. Everybody said what can be said about this film. It is bad. The characters are bad. The action is bad. Doctor Doom is bad. The story is bad. The CGI is bad. Everything about this film is bad. It wanted to set up this world of Fantastic Four, but it forgot to completely tell a good story. Coming in at number 4 is... It's crazy how Eddie Redmayne can go from winning an Oscar to being one of the worst characters of 2015. Jupiter, played by Mila Kunis, was supposed to be this really cool female character, but she pretty much portrayed Princess Peach. Everybody needed to save her all the time. Yeah, the film looked pretty cool, but it had a lot of weird makeup with Channing Tatum's ears and Eddie Redmayne screaming all the time. Just did not make sense to me at all. Coming in at number 3 is... I hated this film. I hated it. Every single second about this film, I hated it. It was the most cliche holiday film ever, filled with the most cliche characters ever. I did not care about this family at all. I didn't care if their holiday plans got ruined. And to top it all off was the narration played by a dog. Yes, go watch this film, watch the end. It is narrated by a dog. Voiced by Steve Martin, who voiced a dog. Coming in at number 2 is... Yeah, I watched this film. I didn't see it in theaters, but I watched it because I knew that this film would be on this list. 50 Shades of Grey is a fan fiction of Twilight, and it shows. Bella was uninteresting. I don't even know the girl's name in 50 Shades of Grey. She was uninteresting. Edward was uninteresting. The guy who's ever in 50 Shades of Grey, he was uninteresting. They matched. It completely shows that this was a fan fiction of Twilight. I thought some of the scenes would be like, ooh, it's gonna be hot. Yeah, it got weird. To the point where I was uninterested in watching anything that this film had to do with. 50 Shades of Grey tried to write this beautiful love story about a woman who's too shy and a man who wants to break her out of the shell in other ways than normal. But I never felt like these two were connected in the first place. Alright guys, the number 1 worst film of 2015, and you guys are thinking, what could it be? You already have one of the bad films on there, 50 Shades of Grey. You already got Fantastic Four. You mentioned Gem and the Holograms, so what is the worst film? And I'm pretty sure it's a film that you guys did not see. It's a film that came out in January, and it was created by George Lucas, of all people. It is Strange Magic, a little animated film that came out in the beginning of January that I went and saw because it looked fun. George Lucas's name was attached to it. I wanted to see what this film was about. This is one of the worst animated films I have ever seen, alongside The Nut Job and Return to Oz, Legend of Oz, whatever that was. This was a horrendous animated film. I hated this film. This film tried to fill in so much pop music of many different generations to accommodate a lot of scenes, and they used the same songs over and over and over again. The voice actors were just way over the top, and the characters were pretty much stupid. In the end, Strange Magic was just a complete mess with a very awkward soundtrack with stupid characters. So there you guys have it, my top 10 worst films of 2015. There were some good films last year, but there also was some bad films like these. So let's just watch movies. Please remember to rate, subscribe, comment, and stay tuned for my best films of 2015. So this is just watch movies. I hope everybody is starting 2016 off on a good note, and you stay classy, YouTube.